based on the lyrics. It's not your singing, hey Neil, how are you? Hi Meryl, good to see you too. She's good? She's doing well. Each has come, I think tomorrow's going to be a big day. I think he's going to be turning a corner. That's my hope. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm coming along. I feel like there's still a little bit of like, just lung congestion. I think you'll hear it tonight. I think you'll hear it tonight.
Laura said yesterday you sounded awful.
That I did? Yeah, I'm doing better. I'm doing better today than I was yesterday, even because I did a little bit of Rashi, but I didn't stay the whole morning. Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know it. I'm sorry. Check. Oh. Hey Marshall. Shabbat Shalom, how are you? Nice to see you too. It's good to see you. Oh, how wonderful. We've seen each other around town a bit when I run through Dedham sometimes. Well, I had COVID 2 weeks ago. I was getting back to running and that was going well, and then I got COVID, so that's setting me back, but I'm about to start running. I hope so. Are you riding? Okay. How's Jane?
All right. How are you? Yeah? I'm surprised to see you.
I know. He's the senior rep.
Okay. Yeah, so far, I don't know how, but
Thanks. Karen, you're like, Karen. Checking, check. You're lighting candles in the absence of a family. That way we don't ask anyone else. Okay. We'll do Ahavat Olam, and this needs to stay here so I can also peek at it.
Friedman?
Yeah.
Ahavat Olam Friedman.
Okay.
Okay.
And I saw that you changed that to top. Fine.
That's
And
why
Adon Olam, we need a melody.
Okay, we've got lots of time for
What's
that.
that?
We've got lots of time for that. And also, we should start. Dave, assuming he would want it.
Yeah, Diane.
What?
I can write down Diane. Yeah, because the funeral was today.
Yeah, I know. Here we are.
All right, here we go. I'm going to ask the Machatonim to take a seat.
But anywhere you want, Neil.
Shalom. We're going to keep welcoming in one another on page 24. Shalom Aleichem. We welcome in the Shabbat messengers of peace. Take this moment in a song to make that shift, to make that transition from your week into our sanctuary and into Shabbat.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharim.
Shalom. It is good to be together this evening as spring is trying to break through here in New England, our season of renewal and new life. And whatever brought you out this evening to celebrate Shabbat, to celebrate Vivian Denmark, who will be called to the Torah as a bat mitzvah tomorrow morning. A special welcome to those of you joining us from home as well on our live stream. We hope you will join us in prayer and a song and Shabbat celebration this evening. It is an honor to call forward members of Vivian's family, multi-generations, Lynn and Lauren Denmark, Vivian's grandmother and mother. You can come make your way up to our bima to bring in the light of Shabbat, and we're on pages 2 and 3.
As the As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad l'kner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad l'ikner shel
And we'll continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi as we welcome in the Shabbat bride. We'll join in verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And at that last verse, if you would like to rise, we'll then face the doors and bring in Shabbat. Standing and turn to page 26 for Chatzi Kaddish, which will lead us into our call to worship. Yitgada v'yitgada shemei rabba ve'al divrach חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם אלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירם בעלמם וימרו 28
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening
through my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Let's join together in the English on the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom
sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravi. Continue on page 32 as we recognize God's love for us. Torah As you are all seated, we invite Vivian Denmark to join us on our bima to lead us in Ve'ahavta on page 36. These words that remind us to teach our tradition to the next generation.
Nice and loud.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושינותם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות ידיך והיו לטובות לעיניך ושבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למה תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
And let's join together in the English on page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40, we sing our Song of the Sea. את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, Gal Yisrael. We join on page 42 as we pray for peaceful nights and new days ahead. We ask that God's Sukkot Shalom, God's shelter of peace, will be spread over all of us. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. U'shmor tzedkenu u'to'enu Chaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu. We turn now to pages 46 and 47 as we rise in body or in spirit for our tefillah. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you.
Adonai
Sifatai tiftachu fiya ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei bneihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'gevurot, Umidom
עצמי אף ישוע, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. I invite you to take a few moments to add the prayers from your heart, and feel free to be seated when you're ready. We'll come back together on page 60 as we add our prayer for shalom, for peace and wholeness. We especially keep in mind our brothers and sisters in Israel and people of Ukraine as we pray for continued peace throughout all lands and all people. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov yedecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. We especially look forward to a special prayer for peace sung by Vivian's grandmother and uncle on guitar tomorrow morning. So that will be something to look forward to. And we'll continue now in our service to add our prayer for health and healing. You can find Misha Berach on page 253. We take this moment to pray for members of our community, loved ones who are ill at this time. Colin Monroe, Mary Lou Hole, Janet Watson, Paul Robillard, Elizabeth Hill, Enrico Mascaro, Deborah Booker, Robert Bloom, Annalie Stone, Benjamin Horowitz, Bradley Dichter, Matteo Goldman, Dan Ruggiero, Toby Weiner, Esya Rushavskaya, Amy Fasberg-Kurz, Eileen Arnone, Marilyn Breyer, Jean Sands, Roseanne Cohen, Tom Fiorino, Barry Levine, Carolyn Weil, Stephen Driscoll, and Avi Glazer. If you would like to add any other names, you may do so. Special prayer tonight, as we tend to do at the start of our months. Does anyone celebrating a birthday in the month of April? No one. You're sure you're not hiding it? All right. Well, we'll wait for May. If anyone, we were going to call you up, but if anyone is celebrating at home, we'll wish you good health and joy this year, and happy birthday, Yom Huledet Sameach, and we'll get the April folks next year.
Jonas, this is perfect timing because I'm about to give a sermon, and I know you wouldn't miss that. Right, my friend? All right. Shabbat Shalom. Nearly every year in our rabbinate, we get a phone call from a parent in panic as their child starts to study a particular springtime Torah portion. The call goes something like this. Rabbi, my daughter can't read this portion. It's full of skin diseases and weird purity rituals and bodily fluids. They say, Rabbi, isn't there a story my son can study? Can't we just pick a different Torah portion? Of course, that Torah portion is Metzora in the book of Leviticus, the one we read this Shabbat. I know that Vivian and her parents can relate. I also know that Vivian will offer an incredible teaching tomorrow to help us make sense of this portion, so I don't want to specifically address that portion tonight. I do want us to consider the question that Metzora poses to us. What happens when our Torah and our traditions make us uncomfortable and places before us ideas that at best seem irrelevant and at worst offend our contemporary sensibilities? Sometimes our first reactive is instinctive. Our defense mechanism of flight takes over and we try to run from an unappealing text. Actually, Jewish tradition is sensitive to our feelings about troubling texts. In one discussion in the Talmud, the rabbis identified texts that are acceptable to read and translate in public, other texts that the rabbis found a little more problematic and designated that these texts could be read out loud in public, so in other words, in Hebrew, but not translated. And by the way, just so that you know, the rabbis of the Talmud, some 1,500 years ago, their lingua franca was Aramaic, so not Hebrew. So even the Jews in Shul then needed translation. And finally, some texts, the rabbi said, you know what? This is so problematic, we're not even going to read this text in public, and we're not even going to translate it. Metzora was not on the list, incidentally. Now, perhaps this is nothing more than the Jewish precursor to the movie rating system. You know, like a G, we can read and translate, a PG-13 we can read, but we're not going to translate an R, we're not even going to read it. But our rabbis recognized, like we do, that not all of the ideas embedded in our Bible are easy to swallow. And yet the rabbis doggedly refused to abandon to obscurity parts of the Bible that they found problematic. They did not simply reject abrasive texts. Rather than flight, the rabbis honed their instinct to fight. They fought with the texts in the Beit Midrash, the house of study, and forced the text to speak to them. The rabbis developed a secret weapon that served as a radical response to difficult texts they inherited. What was this weapon? Interpretation. An eye for an eye and a tooth, for example, is really troubling if you think about it. But that's never what the rabbis said that text meant. They said it's really the idea of justice. For if it were literally an eye for an eye, that wouldn't be justice, it would simply be barbaric. No, according to the rabbis, an eye for an eye meant that if one suffers some kind of loss at the hands of another, he or she should be compensated financially based on the monetary value of his or her loss, not through violent retribution. And a passage in Deuteronomy says that the rebellious, defiant son who egregiously spurns his parents was to be taken to the city gate and stoned to death. It says that in the Torah. But the rabbis declared in the Talmud, that case of such a son never existed in all of Israel. It was just hypothetical, theoretical, but there's no child who was ever like that. So the rabbis didn't censor the text, but through interpretation, they nullified this unthinkable provision. And it's a good thing, too, because many of us probably would not have lived through our teenage years. Now, perhaps we can see a pattern in the rabbinic reaction to difficult parts of the Bible. The more radical, outlandish, and creative an interpretation, the greater the problem the rabbis had with the text. The rabbis then refuse to let any part of Torah fall into irrelevance or obscurity. They are not satisfied until they uncover a meaningful lesson in Torah, even the most challenging texts. In their view, it is better to come up with a wildly creative interpretation than shun a text that is jarring. The great Israeli poet, Yehuda Amichai, struggles with parts of our books that he would rather ignore or discard. He imagines what it would look like to edit the Bible, discarding the uncomfortable parts. In the end, he realizes that he damages not only the literature, but himself as well. In a poem called From the Book of Esther, I Filtered the Sediment, Amichai writes, "From the book of Esther, I filtered the sediment of vulgar joy, and from the book of Jeremiah, the howl of pain in the guts, and from the Song of Songs, the endless search for love, and from Genesis, the dreams of Cain, and from Ecclesiastes, the despair, and from the book of Job, Job. And with what was left, I pasted myself a new Bible. Now I live censored and pasted and limited and in peace." In censoring the text, Amichai admits that he has censored himself. In putting together a cut and paste Bible from the desirable parts alone, he becomes an impoverished patchwork, incomplete self. He creates a false sense of peace. The brilliance of our Torah, the whole Torah, is that it is about life, and life is complex and not always easy. Sometimes it's a little bit messy, but the beauty is found in the complexity. Like in this Amichai poem, we sometimes close ourselves off to parts of Judaism and Jewish texts that do not sit well with us. When we do this, we prevent ourselves from creating new Jewish wisdom. The disease of negativity towards our tradition, like the skin afflictions in this week's Torah portion, comes between us and our heritage. Our feelings of discomfort with certain texts in our tradition are understandable. Our desire for a Judaism and Jewish scripture that speaks to us is real and deep. Sometimes we just need to dust off the ancient words and help them speak in a language we can understand. So what do we do with Leviticus, with this Torah portion, Metzorah? What do we do with a text that can cause an emergency of faith? We interpret it. We wrestle with it, argue with it, stretch it, push it, and pull it so that it may speak to our lives. Tomorrow, you will learn from our people's newest teacher of Torah, Vivian, and see this process in action. She embraces that challenge and the invitation that the text offers when it cries out, "Darsheni, seek meaning from me, interpret me." So what will you do with that invitation? Shabbat Shalom.
By the way, you guys didn't freak out too much. So. Please do join us tomorrow morning as Shabbat continues. 9 o'clock a.m. is our lay-led minyan, both here at Temple and on Zoom. Rabbi Zub, the Rabbi Emeritus, will be leading that, and at 10:30 a.m. here in our sanctuary, we will celebrate Vivian becoming Bat Mitzvah. So all are welcome, and throughout the weekend, we have Shorashim in the morning on Sunday, as well as our Women's Seder at 4 o'clock p.m. Sunday afternoon. You don't even know this yet, Betty, but I will let you know. I believe there are a few extra spaces due to some very, very recent COVID-related cancellations, so which I'll tell you. But if anyone else is interested, Women's Seder, I think, can still join us, and let Betty know. let's see, and throughout the week, we will have different learning, different classes getting ready for Passover. So please do note we do not have an evening service here at Temple next Friday night because it is the first night of Passover. There will be a morning service at 10 o'clock celebrating both Shabbat and Passover. If you would like to open your Seder to any Temple members, or if you're looking for a Seder, you can also let me know by Sunday at the latest. Anything else? We will move now into our concluding prayers, and always good to look ahead. This is week 3 now of return of our Oneg Shabbat, so thank you to the Denmarks for a few sweets, and after our service, you're welcome to head over to our social hall to say hello and enjoy a little Oneg Shabbat. Page 282, if you're able, we rise now for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tegedula liotzer breshit, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei Malach Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol ha'aretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai Echad Ushemo Echad. Our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We are especially remembering these members of our community and families who have died in this past week. We remember Diana Kaminsky, mother of Dave Kaminsky, and mother-in-law of Lynn, grandmother of Shira and Meyer. And we are remembering Eleanor Rubin, mother of Carol Lewis. We also remember these loved ones whose yahrzeit, whose anniversary of death occur this Shabbat. Esther Berman, Evelyn Bernstein, Michael Brody, Samuel Goldstein, Marvin Harris, Rosalie Kupferschmidt, Jules Leventhal, Alan Oranger, Lola Rosoff, Lynn Cypress, Mona Spark, Saul Stoloff, Irene Sarah Tar, Paul Van Dam. If there are other names that you are remembering, you're welcome to share them with us. We join in Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'yizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ul'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom.
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. All right, so we are saying Kiddush and Motzi in here in case there's anyone who's not joining the Oneg, because this is all kind of new. So we are going to invite Vivian back to our bima to lead us in the blessings of Kiddush and Motzi. We're on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yorei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bichanu bo mitzvotav v'ratzah banu v'shabbat kodsho Be'ahava ratzo hinhilanu sikaro lam aseh bereishit hivu yom tehila lemirai kodesh zecher tzviyat mitzrayim hivanu v'acharta Ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'olim ve'shabat kodeshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai v'kadesh Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
All right, Vivian, you can take the cover off the challah. We're not going to eat it yet. We're going to bring it next door. Although I don't think it's gluten-free, so you might not be eating it. The rest of us will. Again, just mazel tov to your whole family, and Jonas will have you up here in a couple of years. So Vivian, please lead us in the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz
Shabbat Shalom. All right, we're going to conclude with just a few more words of peace. You can find them again at the bottom of 294, and we ask that God, who makes peace above, will bring peace here amongst all of us. And thank you so much to our door greeters and ushers and everyone for being part of our community this evening. Oseh Shalom. Romav, Oseh Shalom, Bim Romav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oseh Shalom. Bim Romav. Oseh Shalom. Bim Romav. ase shalom. Hu ase shalom. Hu ase shalom. Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Shabbat Shalom. You're welcome to make your way next door to our social hall. Shabbat Shalom.